It's Tuesday, March 8th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, the board game, Tales of the Arabian Nights.
Let's do this.
So we've already talked on this show about the Game of the Year 2010, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX.
We have.
However, I must inform everybody that I am ranked number 214 in the world.
Out of 240.
No, out of like over 100,000. A lot. I don't know if it's 100,000. It's a fuck ton of players, thousands and thousands of players. I'm number 214. And
that is pretty damn impressive.
it's actually less than that because there are like very few players at the very, very top that are all cheaters. Because if you go and look at the leaderboards, you'll see that there's like 5 or 6 guys, like less than 10. But their scores are pretty much at the limit of the score field. And it's like, yeah, they definitely cheated.
Yeah, there's no way they didn't.
There's no way that was a legitimate score. Like some of them have, it's usually, the thing is, it's only on certain like scored courses that they actually have these cheating times and whatever. On the time trials, it seems like all the times are actually legitimate. The thing is, basically what happened is I just kept playing and my skill improved, right? And what happened is just there's so many courses and so many different things you have to score on. I just kept playing all of them. I kept cycling through them, and every time I cycled through, it's like my score it just took time for it to jump up because it's like, well, I haven't done the junction in a while.
That's what I was finding too.
So I do the junction again, and I can beat all my old junctions by a whole bunch.
When I was playing the game regularly, just in the course of actually doing the time trial on one I hadn't done before, my rank would jump like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Yep, but now I've pretty much sort of hit this limit where I've sort of done everything, and it's very, very difficult for me to beat any of my own stuff now. Like,
it is very frustrating to play a time trial of something you've already pretty much mastered.
Yeah, but the thing is, I look at the leaderboard for that time trial, and I'm only, like, there's one time trial on Highway, which is one of my best courses, but for some reason, my time trial on Highway is shit, and I can't figure out, like, any way to make it go faster.
See, if you're off by a little bit, then it could just be a matter of perfect execution, like getting sparks in every corner.
No,
if you're off by a lot...
I'm off by a lot. I can't figure out, but I can't, like...
It means there's an alternate path that you should be taking.
Yeah, but I can't find the alternate path. Maybe, you want to help me out?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I should start playing again, because I played the game a whole bunch, and Scott and I were neck and neck for a while, and I just stopped playing. And Scott kept playing. And now I think Scott is way better than me, and I got to catch up.
Yeah, there's going to be a tournament for it at PAX, but it's I don't like really the format of the tournament. It's kind of lame, and also it's at a bad time. I already have a scheduled thing at that time.
If I were doing the tournament at PAX, the way I would do it is, all right, so you've got 100 entries. Make sure you've got 100 Xboxes ready to go, or maybe 50. Break it down into big groups, and have everybody go.
They only have, I think it's max 30-something entries. It's not many.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of course, the game isn't that popular, actually.
Yeah, well, the way they're doing it is pretty much you get to play Championship 2, so the default course, and the 5-minute time score mode.
Default course? I kicked the shit out of that course.
So you have to, basically what you do is you go and you sit next to someone, and you get one try, right? And one try means either the full 5 minutes or you die, right?
That actually is important, because one thing I've noticed
I never die.
Yeah, I never die either. Dying is crazy. But playing the game, because we were both going for the high scores, anytime I made a mistake at all, I just reflexively restart.
Yep.
Even if
if you reflexively restart at the tournament, you're just done. They'll mark your score at whatever it was when you restarted.
Even if I'm 3 minutes into a 5-minute run, if I make a mistake, I just start over because I know now that my run is useless.
Here's my strategy. If I am in the tournament, which is not looking likely, but if it does happen, anytime that I would have restarted, pause. Because you pause when you would restart when you're about to die, right? So instead, pause. Take a look around you and try to figure out...
I wouldn't restart when I'm allowed to die. If I'm about to die, I'd bomb. If I restart, it's because, I missed a turn.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
What I would do is I would just... Because I'm not allowed to restart in the tournament, it would basically just fuck me over. I would pause and say, okay, where am I now that I fucked up? And figure out the optimal escape. Be it a bomb or whatever. And then, go for it.
Will they let you pause? Many tournaments don't.
There's no way they can't not let you pause.
I wouldn't let people pause.
You got to be able to pause.
I would argue... if I were running a tournament... One of the rules would be you cannot pause the game. If you do, you immediately lose.
No, I would say pausing is allowed. Anyway.
I wouldn't let pausing happen.
I would ask about pausing, but anyway.
You should have tweeted Robert Koo about pausing.
Oh, he would tell me about it. Anyway. So the thing is, if I was in the tournament, right, it's like, so you go to Championship 2 and you play the 5-minute score attack. You get one try against one other person, and whichever one of you gets the better score on that playthrough, right, moves forward in the bracket.
See, now, the reason I bring up that whole restarting thing is that even if you don't restart, people who play the game for the high score get into a mode where they're always going for the perfect run. They very rarely play the degenerated game, the I messed up, have to keep going mode, which is actually important in a tournament where you're only playing once, because now it's not just what is your optimal play, it is also what is your average play. Like if you fuck up, you have to deal with that now. Like you have to do it's one shot. It's how consistent you are.
However, in the final round, when there's only 2 people left, you get 2 shots, and they take your better score of the 2 tries, but you still have to make the most of each try. You can't bail on either one.
Yeah.
Because, if you be like, oh, it's the first try, I screwed up, I'll just throw this try out and do the next one perfectly. Well, what if you fuck up the next one, too? It's like you got to use the maximum score that you're going to get on either try.
Skiing races are like that. Like when you have a ski team and you do races, a lot of times the way it's formatted is you have, like, say, 5 team members. They all get to do the course, and if you fall, like, you basically don't qualify. Like, it doesn't count. Like, you don't get any score. You get an X, like nothing.
Whoa.
But you would need, say, 3 scores for the, like, how your team was ranked at the end. So if you have 5 guys, 2 of the scores won't count. So you'll have your really good guys go first, and you'll have them push it. Because if they fuck up, you have the lame guys who can, just do the course okay and get at least a score as opposed to
usually,
nothing.
like in a relay race, you would do the opposite, right? You have the crappy guys go first, and you have the best guy at the end who can make up for, how much time was lost. As opposed to having your best guy go first, and then, if someone else is ahead of you at the end, well, you got no chance.
Or what you do is put the best guys last, but their dictum is, all right, if the not as good guys they passed, they didn't fail, they made it to the end, they got okay times, and all of them made it, then you can really push it, because if you fuck up and don't get a score, at least everyone else got a score. But if, say, you're the last guy, you're the best guy, and 3 of your teammates fucked up and got no score, you now know that you have to play the conservative route and just get a score no matter what it is.
But yeah, the tournament is pretty much all Championship 2 5-minute, which is kind of like, because I've pretty much, the reason my rank is so high, I think, is because if you actually look, it seems like a lot of people don't play all the courses. And I've actually gone through and played every mode on every course to the maximum of my ability, and because of that,
it's hard to say.
That is what has pushed my rank so up.
But thus, it's hard to say how good you actually are at that course or overall, because people who are really good.
There's also individual course rankings.
Oh yeah,
and
but
I'm in the top like hundreds of every course.
But I think people who are really good at the game, some of them they should be ranked higher, but they're not because they just never played one of the courses.
That's quite possible. That there are people who are perhaps like excellent at one course. Like maybe there's a guy who mastered Championship 2 and he doesn't play any other courses at all. But so the thing is, I have individual course ranks, and you can see those as well.
So I guess you have to decide: are you going to enter the tournament or not?
I don't think so, because the timing is looking bad. But it's not like
I could win. I just don't want
to prove anything because my rank is public on the leaderboards. So whatever.
I have mixed feelings about tournaments and conventions in general. Even PAX, I feel like
at least PAX gives you sweet medals if you win.
They do, but every con I've ever been to, except MagFest, the tournaments they have in video gaming tend to be kind of not very glamorous, kind of poorly run, or if they're well run, they're just not that fun, and there's no spectator component by and large.
Except for the Omegathon.
Yeah, the Omegathon's separate, though. That's almost a special event.
My major problem with them is that they just take a lot of time. It's a serious investment.
But that's because they're designed to do that. You could design them differently to where they wouldn't take up as much time.
It is a serious time investment to go and be in the tournament, and the cost-benefit ratio doesn't work out.
I did enjoy the way MagFest did their hardcore challenge area, where
they could do the Pac-Man that way. They could be like, here's a Pac-Man DX machine.
Yep.
Anyone who, we're resetting the high scores on it. Right? Anyone come over and play it at any time during the con. As soon as you take a try, we're gonna write down your badge number. And I think I saw pictures of badges with numbers on them. We'll write down your badge number, and thus if you try to score on again, when we'll see that you've already scored on the spreadsheet or whatever, so you can't score again. And everyone can try once at most, and the highest score at the end of the con will mail you a prize. or something like that. Or maybe they should have an awards ceremony while we're all waiting for the final Omegathon to start instead of sitting there for during their delay. They could do a simple awards ceremony.
You do it like we did at RIT Anime with like the Trash Talk Mario Tennis tournaments. You have tournaments where all the qualifiers happen kind of on the down low, and then the semifinals and finals. Or maybe even just the finals.
Yeah, think about that. You're waiting for the final Omegathon, and they have the final round of Street Fighter, of these other like 5 other big tournaments.
Blindfolded Monkey Ball,
Street Fighter, Halo, Pac-Man, and something else. Right? They could have those while you're waiting for that final Omegathon, and it would be all like the highest skilled dudes at PAX.
They do need to have more odd tournaments, because some of my favorite tournaments were like when we do the blindfolded monkey ball
I think they
teams.
just don't have the time and the resources for them, right? It's like, they've already dedicated so many TVs, machines, and adjudicators to the...
If they had more manpower, they could do things like that. But it's not just manpower, it's manpower that's willing to deal with that kind of BS.
Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, we've run that stuff. It takes a lot of patience.
Yep. You think it's a big time investment for the people in the tournament. It's a bigger investment for the guy running the tournament.
So I know a lot of you have been playing Magika. I actually really haven't played it much yet, but
I played a whole bunch of levels, but then I stopped, and I need somebody to finish it with.
Yeah. So there is an expansion that was announced to Magika, and
I thought it was actually a sequel. Is it an expansion?
It's called an expansion.
Okay.
Magika Vietnam.
This is not a joke. It's a joke, but it's real.
What is this? This is excellent, and more people who are making real games need to do stuff like this. It takes the piss out of the entire genre of realistic military sims.
Yeah.
I love the idea of stuff like this, partly because, our friend Scout Johnson, what does he want more than anything in the world? A movie where fighter jets and dragons fight.
Well, this is wizards versus soldiers.
Yeah, it's basically the same kind of thing. Why do fantasy games have to be just fantasy and sci-fi have to be just sci-fi? Why do the games have to make sense? just make stuff that is
even
crazy.
That shit doesn't make sense either. A lot of shit that comes out does not make sense.
But I mean, Magika Vietnam sounds crazy, and yet people who have played previews of it said it's awesome.
At first, I was almost sort of slightly maybe offended by it, like because... it's like some people out there, they get offended from like real war games, right? They're like, oh, you can't turn war into a game. War is for serious. And you can sort of understand why, especially if they were
but
veterans.
Then what about a game like Counter-Strike that's not based on any particular conflict?
It's like I'm personally not offended by that. But this... It was like I was almost offended because it was like it's making light of war. It's like lol war, and I'm like, But
I know another game that is equally making light of war.
But because I sort of figured out that it's basically this is really it's not being lol war. It's saying lol realistic war games, which is sort of it's like all right, I can go with that.
But also, I mean, look at the original Advance Wars games before they rebooted it dark and serious with the new DS one.
They're not really going lol war.
Yeah, they were. Look at the plot.
They're just going war. Yay!
Yay, war!
That's like how it's like Punch Out is to boxing, right? It's like real boxing is bloody and brutal, and Punch Out's like boxing. Yay!
But at the same time, look at the message of the old Advance Wars. All
Team
right.
Fortress 2 is also a war. Yay!
I've got 2 generals, and they're friends, but they're having a battle because what the fuck? Let's have a battle. And they're like, yay! Send my infantry in. Yay! I'll defend with my tanks. And then if you zoom in, you've got tanks mowing down human beings fighting an infantry
They just
battalions.
disappear. They're not being... I mean, the difference is, right, is that, when it's specifically Vietnam War and you've got magicians going around setting people on fire and shit, it's like, it's a little bit different.
But at the same time, I mean, if we go far back enough, I mean, if someone made Magika Sparta... Battle of Thermopylae, Battle of Marathon.
Nobody would care.
Nobody would care. Is it just a matter of, well, those are people who fought and died and had these horrible experiences 1,000 years ago, so that's okay.
I think pretty much
is it too soon syndrome?
No, I think what it is, it's not the fact that it's too soon, is that it is a graphic and brutal massacre, and that you are trading basically an almost identical scenario. A wizard goes in and massacres all the people with fire, right, in a horrible way, but he's a cartoonish wizard. It'd be like. It's like, what if I just if I took Full Metal Jacket, right, but I replaced all the characters with like the Watchmen to make it
I would watch that.
I know, but
And one other brief thing I do want to mention is that there's a game for the Super Nintendo that I perennially will forget the name of, want to refer to, not know the name of it, and then we'll have to say it's like Flashback on the Super Nintendo, but it came out way before.
Yep.
And you're a guy. It's called Another World.
Yep.
And it's in the news because apparently it's being ported to the iPhone and the iPad.
Well, I get, that's a game where the graphics weren't astounding, but they had this unique look that has never been replicated in another game except Flashback.
Yeah, also, for the day, when that game came out, it was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, on the Super Nintendo, it was a digitized, I'm making quote marks, game, as in they modeled people and they made this kind of graphical masterpiece.
Yep.
The game itself is actually not that fun.
No. It's just, it has this really unique artistic style to it that makes it stand out, and actually it also keeps it modern even though it's old.
Well, the game was fun in itself. It had this interesting concept of dying gave you various cinematics of your gruesome death.
Yeah.
And I think that was half the fun of the game.
Yeah, probably.
But, those slugs. Let's see what happens if they get me.
The thing is, a lot of the game, it was basically an adventure game, right? Because you had to solve puzzle games.
Yeah, but it had a real-time component.
Yeah, you had to solve puzzles in the adventure game sort of Monkey Island way, but you did it with a real-time thing, not like Dragon's Lair, but like a platforming, more like Prince of Persia.
It was a cross
Original
between,
Prince of Persia.
It's a cross between Prince of Persia and Dragon's Lair. It has some Dragon's Lair-y bullshit in it.
It does, but the thing is, it had Prince of Persia controls.
Yeah.
Perhaps even, or Dragon's Lair NES controls.
I never got past when you first get the laser gun and you get out of the jail and you're crawling through the steam vents. Past that point, never. Never once in my whole life.
All right. So... Is that the end of your newses?
Yeah.
All right, so there's this game coming out called Darkspore. I didn't even know about it until today. This morning, Amazon emailed me and said, here's a beta key for Darkspore, and because we like you. And I'm like, all right, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I download that shit. It's free. I got a beta key. Darkspore is on the Spore engine. Remember the game that failed from Will Wright?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what Darkspore is, it's basically Diablo Spore. You got a guy, you click, it's a 3/4 isometric view, you click, he walks there, you click on bad guys, you hit them and they die. It's got a little bit, though, of the more complex controls in a Dota sort of way, right? So, first of all, you've got a team of 3 guys, up to 3, maybe even 4 guys. I never got a 4th
You switch
guy.
between them, like control one or the other?
You can switch between them in real time, but you can't do it quickly. It's like you switch, and you have to wait like a few seconds before you're allowed to switch again. Right? So you can carry a healer and a fire and a tank and another guy at the same, right? And you switch between them. I think there's also co-op or and PvP if you go online, maybe. And it's pretty much Diablo. You click on the bad guys and they die, and you can have special attacks, which are the number keys. So you press like number 1 to do your weak attack, and number 2 to do your strongest special attack, and your regular old click is your regular old attack. The only thing that was Spore-like about it is that when you get equipment and you can equip the equipment, as in an RPG. You actually position the equipment on your guy and, rotate it and all that stuff using the Spore character kind of thing. You don't actually get to make your character. You just get them. But you can equip them in a Spore customizing kind of way. This game is really bad. I don't see
Really?
It was boring as hell. It's pretty much, they somehow made Diablo even more boring. You literally do nothing but click on bad guys. And that's pretty much it.
Wow.
It's just click on bad guys.
Duly noted. I will not...
In completely boring environments, and they tried to do some interesting things with the bad guys. Like there's a bad guy who shoots a teleporter at you, so every time it hits you, you teleport. And there's some bad guys who shoot bullets at you that are slow, so you can actually skillfully sort of dodge them. And they tried to do some stuff with the bad guys to make it interesting, but really, it's just clicking on guys. And of Diablo, Torchlight, and Darkspore, I'll take Torchlight, which was playable enough that I was actually beat it. And it was cheap, $5.
So things of the day. College humor, we use a lot of college humor stuff for things of the day. And I'm actually going to do it again because they've made a show that is pretty damn solid. And if it continues in the vein that it is continuing, I would continue to watch it. I would recommend that all of you do the same.
Yeah, it's similar in structure to an ESPN show, Pardon the Interruption, which is, I tried to make Geeknights sort of like that, but
yeah, we
even
talked
though
about
it doesn't
that
resemble it in any way.
In the early conceptual days of Geeknights.
Yeah.
But Nerd Alert is basically a nerd talk show. It's kind of like Geeknights, but a little slower and with an extra person.
Well,
video.
It's much shorter and video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, is that all you got to say?
Yeah, that's all I got to say. It's good. You should
right.
watch it. They interview the guy who, when he was a kid, was in that Mortal Kombat ad where Kano was coming out of the box and getting the guy.
Yeah. Anyway, so have you ever wanted to play an MMO that looked like Final Fantasy 1?
Kinda. I could do that. Maybe.
Well, there is one. It's 100% free to play. It's called Nostalgia. And that's pretty much what it is. An MMO that looks like Final Fantasy and plays like Final Fantasy 1.
So I walk around and level up to 99 over the course of the next 5 years?
Yeah, I played it for a minute, and I was just, as soon as I walked into the town, and then I was just like, stop playing.
Can you talk to people? Like, can you do all the MMO stuff?
I played it for about 10 seconds before I realized, oh, right. It's like the concept on the one hand makes you want to play it, but then as soon as you play it, you're like, I don't want to play this. But it's thing of the day worthy anyway.
I'd say so. I will check it out.
Yeah.
I will not check out the beta key that I got from Amazon, though, apparently.
Yeah. They do have an optional yearly subscription that enables some non-essential features, such as you can
leveling, killing monsters.
There's extra classes that you can't get. Like, you can only be some base classes if you don't pay.
You can't be a fighter or a wizard.
You can be I think wizard's the most fancy thing you can be, but you can't be anything fancier than that.
What's fancier than wizard?
There were 8 choices. I think you only get 4 for free.
Uh-huh.
And then you can also customize your guy's appearance. That way people can tell that you paid money.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so this weekend, we're recording all our shows ahead of time because we're going to be at PAX. PAX, bitch. East PAX.
Yeah, that's right.
PAX East.
Oh, snap.
We're doing 5 panels in 3-panel rooms. So Friday night, our first panel, the Triple Threat, one of our new ones. I'm actually looking forward to it. I think we got a solid panel there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then on Saturday, we're going to be playing games pretty much the entire time. So if you want to say hi, you want to hang out, find us in Tabletop on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to grab us after our panels, because after our panels, we usually disappear.
Yep.
And Sunday, we're doing 2 panels, and then we're going to the Omegathon finale.
That's right.
We're doing game mechanics and mechanism design, a favorite from the real PAX. And we're doing winning at games, how to win at games, because you play to win the game.
That's right.
Yeah. Also, next weekend, I'll just note again, we're going to be at ZenkaiCon doing a whole bunch of panels, and Anime Boston will be at a bunch of other cons, join the forum, blah, blah, blah.
Mocha
My Little
Festival.
Pony. Yep. My Little Pony.
Yep. All right. So
a few weekends ago, we were up in Albany, having a big old front row crew party, as we are often likening to do. And we played a game. Well, this game was sold to us by a friend of a friend who hung out at the party. And he sold it to a friend of ours, the Whale Shark in the forum. And the Whale Shark described it to me as, it's an Arabian Nights themed roll board playing game.
And I was like, alrighty, do not confuse this with Arabian Nights, the role-playing game. There is a tabletop role-playing game called Arabian Nights.
Well, it's called 1001 Nights, that game.
Oh, okay, yeah. But there are a lot of games that are called Arabian Nights, or 1001 Arabian Nights, or 1001 Nights, or Arabian, right? Do not confuse this with the other ones. This is Tales of Arabian Nights.
Yes,
Am I
from
correct?
1985, though apparently it has been changed many times since then.
Yes, it is a board game that is currently published by who?
I
Rio
don't
Grande,
even know.
think, maybe?
It's published by West End Games currently.
Okay. Yeah, so just don't get it confused with the other ones, right? We'll have a Board Game Geek link in the show
We'll
notes
link to it.
so
Now,
that you know which one we're talking about.
the interesting thing about this game is that it was sold to us as a role-playing game. Like,
That's also a board game.
It's a storytelling game. You play the game to win. You move guys around. You're trying to become the hero of Baghdad, go on missions, complete quests, come back.
Yeah. I mean, but you can win, right? So I was thinking it was going to be something, they said a role-playing board game. So I thought it would be more like, the Hero Quest kind of thing, right? Because that's most of what people say when they mean role-playing board
game. But
game.
no, we were told that it was more like a choose-your-own-adventure, that there is a sort of storytelling mechanic.
So I thought it would be Hero Quest with more story.
I expected something more because they said choose-your-own-adventure. And sure enough, this game comes with a big fucking choose-your-own-adventure book that is fairly elegantly put together.
See, but actually, even then, I was still thinking, because do you remember, I forget the name of the game. It was a Dungeons & Dragons game. It was around the 2nd edition times, and it came in a big box. You opened up this map.
Dragon Strike?
Was it? It had a big box full of cards, and the cards told you were the GM. Do you remember that?
No.
There was a D&D game, because a friend of mine had it, and it was D&D, walk around, hit monsters, but there was no GM. There was a big box of cards that acted as the GM. So this is sort of like that, where the book is the GM, but it's instead of doing a hit things RPG, it's a storytelling RPG where a book is the GM.
Now, we've played this game once, and I have my judgment on it, but before I pass...
We have only played it once, but I do think we played it for many hours, and I do think it was sufficient, and we didn't finish.
Well, here's
but it was sufficient enough to pass
Here's my warning
judgment.
to you. The playing time that game says is 120 minutes.
Bullshit.
We played this game for over 4 hours, and we're nowhere near anything even resembling the midway point.
Yeah, they are full of shit.
That is 120 minutes. They might as well just shoot you in the face. That is a lie. But not to say whether or not I like the game or not. The way the game works is you have a guy, and then all these different characters.
Yeah,
like you can
Sinbad.
be Sinbad.
Well, I wanted to be Alibaba, but Rim took him.
I was Alibaba.
Yeah.
Hells yeah. And your character has a gender, male or female, and you pick skills. And the skills are things like luck, weapon use, quick thinking. And there's a whole bunch of them, sailing. And you have a wealth level, and your wealth level goes up and down based on things. And basically on your turn, you decide based on, your wealth level, which is how far you can move, where you want to move on this map of Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Russia.
Yep.
And what looks like parts of Australia, maybe. And Britain and everything. And then you draw a card, and based on the card, you look up all these numbers and tables and charts, and the person to your right and the person to your left both have a different reference, and between all of them, they will come to a conflict. They read the conflict to you.
It's kind of magical, right? Because it's like first there's a number on the spot you land on, and then you roll a die, and then you add some numbers together, and then they look up a number on a card, and then you draw a card, and they look at the number on the card, and then they look up a number on a chart, and then you actually get to choose a reaction to something. So it'll be like, all right, at this point that you're encountering a wizard. What do you want to do? Do you want to beg, borrow, steal, bite? What do you want to do to this wizard? And there's like a list of possible reactions. So
now, this is the cool thing.
This is sort of the role-playing part. It's like, do you want to steal from the wizard? Do you want to attack the wizard? Do you want to beg the wizard? Do you want to help the wizard, right?
But this is why this is cool. You're presented with a character you're going to meet, like a lonely wizard or an angry wizard.
It might not be a wizard. It might be a monster. It might be an event, like you're in a marketplace.
Yeah, but it's always, it tends to be like an adjective and something. Like you're in a spooky palace, or you encounter a crying dervish.
Yep.
And you're not told what the situation is. You're only told what it is that you're encountering, and then based on the encounters and the references, you have a list of approaches to whatever it is you're going to encounter. Like basically, it'll come down to things like be pious, be honest, attack it, kill, all these verbs, do something.
Yep. And after you pick a verb, they look at a bunch of charts and they use another die to add a slight amount of randomization to it. So it's not exactly the same every time.
Like +1 or -1. So the story could go in some slightly different ways. Mega 2, Mega T, Mega tie, Mega toe.
Yeah, it's not just, set in stone. And
or
then,
I believe Mega T, Mega tie, Mega toe, Mega 2.
Yep.
Anyway.
Then they finally look in the book and they read something to you. And it's sort of magical that you did all these crazy numbers, and then someone eventually is like, they read directly from the book, and this big book, they come out and they'd be like, you encounter a crying dervish.
He is crying over the fact that he has lost the knife that was given to him by his father and his father's father. And then it's like, all right, because you took steal, you try to steal it from him, and he catches you and punishes you, and you now have the cursed statistic or the cursed trait added to your character.
And you get points.
Or your gender has changed, and you get some points, and you win by getting a combination of fate points and story points, and it's pretty fucking arbitrary as to which ones you get and when you get them, and depending if you have a skill, like it might say, like it'll read the story, they're like, all right, you encounter the angry wizard. He is a wizard and he is angry. Scott, does your character have the lucky or the pious skill?
I have the lucky skill.
Do you want to use it?
Yes.
Now, here's the problem with the game. Using a skill seems to be about 50-50 good or bad for you.
Yeah, it's like you might say, yes, I'll use my lucky skill. Well, you might have actually been better off not using the lucky skill if you're trying to win.
Yep, or it'll be like, do you have the wounded trait? Oh, well, then, and then the story changes.
Yep. But basically, it's weird because it's a role-playing game, and this book is full of this story, and it's sort of crazy how the story actually works and matches what's going on. But at the same time, you really have pretty much no control, at least no, intelligent control over winning or losing. It might as well just be random. And then, on top of that, the rules start to get shaky.
the game, here's my judgment. It is, I'm sorry, a shit game. It is not worth playing. It is not worth
Definitely
buying.
not for the time investment. It's really cool to see it, just experience like a few turns to see the magic of how they set up this book and how much work that must have been. And it's like, as a work of craftsmanship, like I can respect it. Like, damn.
But it is
how did they pull this off?
Unplayable.
Yeah,
I'm
not going to spend hours investing into it. That is not worth it.
Find someone who owns it, get them to run it for you, and have someone else ready to call you with a fake emergency a couple hours later to get you out of the situation.
Yeah, good idea.
This game just doesn't work. Like, your actions, you move around this whole board of the world, and you're given these destination tokens and these origin tokens, and like, I come from here and I go from there, and my wife is living there, and I'm a criminal in this city. That stuff is so incomprehensible and meaningless to the overall
game. And the worst
game.
part of it is that a lot of the stuff just conflicts. The rules just conflict blatantly. It'll be like, all right, I'm wounded, so that means this, but I'm married, that means this, and what happens when I'm both? And it's like,
The rules of the game have changed many times throughout its lifespan, too. Like, apparently in the past, you could only have one trait at a time, but then now you can have multiple traits, but the traits are sometimes mutually exclusive. It just doesn't work. Every turn, we ran into multiple unresolvable rules questions.
Yeah, they thought through the book of story really well, but they didn't really think through the rules of the traits and that sort of the winning and the losing very well at all. And
on top of that, the stories are not created equal. Some of the stories are like 10 sets of crazy questions and do this and this and this, and crazy stuff happens. And
it's like, yeah, I got an awesome story. Sweet, my turn is so fun.
And then my turn will come up, and it's like, you meet a crying beggar, and I pick like steal or kidnap or something, and the story just doesn't go anywhere and nothing happens. Like, great.
Yeah, it's like, someone's sitting there writing this huge book of stories. They're not going to write all of them to be awesome, The worst part, right, is that on the board, they tantalize you with these places of power. And it's like, oh man, I want to go to the places of power. I want to go.
We were unable to legitimately get to we couldn't get to the Brass City.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the Brass City. I wanted to go to the Cave of Wonders. I wanted to go to all these places that had super awesome magic in them, right? You can't actually go there unless something else lets you go there.
Even in the Board Game Geek forums, people point out that, yeah, you're pretty much never going to get to those places.
The other thing is the game has 3 phases. Day, like evening, and then night.
4 hours didn't even get us through day.
Right, so it's like there's a whole bunch of this game that is pretty much inaccessible because apparently the game usually ends during the day and you're never actually going to get to the nighttime.
This game doesn't end. Now, I guess my real problem is that the way the game, all the coolness aside, I'm not even going to get into all the cool mechanics it has because they're all pretty cool individually. Actually playing them, the way the game works is on your turn, you decide where you want to move, which doesn't mean shit as far as I can tell.
You go to your nearest quest dot that happens to be your color.
Yeah, move around, land somewhere, look up a whole bunch of numbers, and then the people to the right and left of you do all the work. And then you're presented with a trivial nothing. You pick an arbitrary option, and then a short, sometimes trivial story that you have no control over is relayed to you, and then the other player takes their turn. And basically, you have no input. The game doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's like this illusion of input, right? It's like they give you these choices that feel like role-playing game choices. Like, do you beg, how are you going to react to this situation?
And I love this
encountered?
role-playing idea of you're presented with a situation and a course of action, but no specifics. Like, you're presented with such an abstracted, like, all right, what would my character do? Would he beg? Would he flee? Would he use a weapon? And then based on that tells the story. But the reality is the stories are all kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Like, the game would be great if it was just a storytelling system. Why bother with this whole overly complex, pointless game that's kind of like hacked on the top of it?
Yeah, I think what they should do is they should take the book story part, right? And what they should do is they should make a game where everyone has sort of a character sheet with an inventory and these sorts of things, right? And it's choose your own adventure, but it's co-op choose your own adventure. So It's like you're in a party and you just turn to page 1 and you read it. And then it says, all right, to do this, go to page 2. To do this, go to page 3. And it's like, and then people can even have their own private books for their characters where it's like, this is the stuff that they learn that no one else learns. So it might be like, all right, you turn to page 3. Scott should go, or Alibaba should turn to page 5 in his personal book and, read that. And then so like Alibaba can do his own thing, just sitting there reading, and also the party is doing something, and then Alibaba maybe suddenly has a treasure and no one knows how he got it. Or, stuff like that. And then that could get all the good parts of this game, which is, a pre-written choose your own adventure with limited replay value without taking forever or having bullshit complicated rules of statuses that conflict with each other and quests and trying to fit winning and losing and role-playing and storytelling
winning and losing
together.
has no bearing on anything. Like, winning this game is completely random.
Yeah, it's like it's basically the winning can basically be considered a timer. It's like when any of the players has had enough story that is good, then they win, and then whatever.
But like an example of fiddliness, there's 2 kinds of victory points, and before the game starts, and before you know anything, you decide how many of each you need to win. But there's no real way to say you're going to get 1 point or the other point in the course of stories. And sometimes the bad endings give you more points than the good endings, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the game it's so tedious. And the stories, by and large, would be cool if the game were a storytelling game, but it's not. It's like this trivial text where you read out, well, this is what happened. Maybe if the players were telling the stories somehow, it would be more fun.
Yeah, the fact that the stories are pre-told is, it's like as opposed to us coming up with the story.
They're pre-told pretty weakly too. Actually, the stories themselves they're mostly consistent, but they're just kind of written weirdly and they use weird phrasing. I get the impression that multiple people were writing the stories and there's
no way one person did this whole
There's
book.
not a lot of meshing between the thematic style of all of these different people.
No, not at all.
I mean, I don't know what else I can say. The game is not worth playing. It's kind of terrible, but there's such a good idea here. If you want, you should buy this game and deconstruct it and make a simpler, better game that does some of the things this does.
Yeah, because, it was painful. It took a long time. It had a lot of bullshit rules. And, if you can avoid caring about those rules, maybe you could have fun with it. But at the same time, the book, as poorly written as it was and as simple as some of the stories were, like, when you went through that book, there was some sort of magic there in that you would draw a wizard card and roll some dice and add a whole bunch of crazy numbers, and then somehow you ended up hearing a story about a wizard, and your reaction to it actually sort of made sense with the story that was told, and it came from a book. It was sort of like, whoa, so, that magical component there, I think there is something that, is good. But, that's what made the rest of the game so much more disappointing, because, I had to suffer through all this BS with confusing rules and 10 hours just to have fun with this book.
Like, the way I would play the game, I came up with one way that this game is worthwhile. If you forget the winning and losing, and you kind of ignore any mechanics about getting victory points, and you just have 4 artists sit down and play the game, and the rule is, after your story, you have to draw a little comic, like a 3 or 4 panel comic, that tells the story your character just had happen to them. And then as you go around, everyone's drawing this comic, this continuity of their character. At the end, you'll get 4 mini comic books. This is the kind of thing artists could sit down on a Saturday and have a cool thing come out of.
Yeah, it would take all day, though.
Yeah, well, it takes all day to play the fucking game anyway.
It would take even longer if you had to stop and draw a comic every time you had a turn.
What's amazing is the game is ranked very highly on Board Game Geek, 7.2 out of 10.
That's not that high, but it is higher than I would give it. I would give it 5
And
star.
the forum on it is interesting. It is 99 billion rules questions with no canonical answers, a million fiddly bits, and half the questions are people saying, they're people saying things like, this is the best game ever, I love it, it's my favorite game, and the other half the people saying, this game is unplayable, what the fuck is wrong with you?
That's why I'd give it 5 stars, right? Because on the one hand, it's not the worst, right? It's not like Hellas or anything,
Hellas at least did not take infinity time to play.
That's true, but it has something going on.
No, the game. This is why the game is
That's why
worse.
I put it right in the middle.
This is why the game's worse than a 5, because while you're playing, you feel like you're on the cusp of figuring it out, and having a lot of fun, but that never happens because there's nothing to figure out.
That's why it's 5. You're torn between greatness and awfulness.
You keep thinking, oh, the game is almost there. I must be doing something wrong. When really, no, you're doing everything right. You'll be in a situation where every player will say, really? That's what happened? That doesn't seem right. There's no way they'd make the game like that. We must have done something wrong. But the reality is, you did everything right. The game is just wrong.
A good example of something that's fucked up in the game is that, everyone, you can have your sex change by accident.
Yep.
But the thing is, it's nearly impossible to have it change back, and you cannot win the game if it is changed. So basically, having your sex changed means you can't possibly win.
Might as well just walk away from the table if you want to win.
And it's completely random if it happens. There's not much you can do to control it. It's just oops, you met the sex change wizard. You just happened to draw the sex change wizard card. Good job.
So, I mean, that's pretty much it. We're going to cut this a little short because, of course, we will be at PAX, so hopefully we'll see you there. And we'll see how quickly we resume our normal Geek Night schedule after PAX because we have Zenkai Con right after.
Yeah.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.